Hello, you're watching Grace Artistry. I'm Anna Grace, and today I'm going to talk about one of the paintings that I finished a little while ago. It's my biggest painting. I kind of think it's my best painting as well, so I'm really excited to show you my process and maybe inspire you to do your own big works. Here we go. So, I started this project because I spent about 10 days on a sailing trip with an organization called SALTS. And it was really amazing. We went around the Vancouver coast, around Vancouver Island, and got to see some pretty neat stuff. So I left that summer really wanting to do something that involved a sailing ship. And I also really loved pirates when I was younger and pirate ships. So I kind of thought about mixing that with children's imagination, because I look after kids a lot. And I wanted to just show like how their minds think. And as an artist, I am able to kind of create my own world in a sense and do things that don't really exist in real life. So instead of just taking a photograph and copying a photograph, I want to show like some imagination-based stuff. Tried to use my imagination a lot more as well, and I saved like probably 1,000 or more pictures in a folder and just kind of worked off of that. So there are things that I had seen in real life and things that I'd seen in movies or whatever. Pirates of the Caribbean was a huge inspiration as well. And I wanted to kind of do something a bit crazy and fun. And up until this point, I kind of like, I'd been a little bit worried about using things that are a little bit less conventional and things that are from my head a bit more, because I was worried that people would look at it and just think it's silly or not take me seriously as an artist. So I kind of, as I grew up, decided to try something that I liked a little bit more and tried to be a little bit less worried about what people think. I started with just sketching some things out. So I just got one of my sketchbooks, tried out a few new things. So here's one. I wanted the idea of a girl drawing a ship. So tried some different things with her kind of drawing on the ship, or kind of seeing how I could intertwine the reality of it with the imagination. So here we go, just a few smallish sketches. This is not a very big sketchbook, and I wanted to just play around a little bit. So I tried the like complete side profile. I thought that was pretty interesting. I had been learning a little bit about strength of silhouette from Aaron Blaise, so I was really intrigued by that and thought, if everything was kind of like turned black and white and really blocky, would you still be able to tell what the painting is about? So kind of wanted to do something with that. I did this really tiny sketch. Don't know if you can see it very well, but I really liked the way that looked with the big ship and her just like kind of in it, but not really. So I played around with that a little bit, still tried out the profile, and I knew who I wanted to pose for this. A girl that I knew really well when she was living here in my city. She moved over to Nova Scotia, and she was just perfect for this because she's so spunky and she's got a great smile, and I just really wanted to capture that. So I actually took another trip the next summer after the sailing trip. Summer after, I went to Nova Scotia and hung out with them all summer, and near the very end of it I took a bunch of photos of her and her sister ended up posing to be the captain in my painting. So while I was in Nova Scotia, I did this drawing of her. So it was from a photograph that I had taken, or a bunch of photographs, picked my favorite one. And it's really funny because she was super grumpy that day. She was like not having any of it, and I was like, well, we're near the end of my time here, I gotta take these pictures. So I just said to her, pretend that you're the most excited you've ever been. And she's a very good actress. She did marvelously. It's totally believable, and I love that perfect smile that I had been thinking about. So I captured that and did end up choosing a bit of a different pose than I was originally thinking. I was thinking profile originally, but I thought this one showed a little bit more of her face, a little more of her smile, and was a little bit more natural too. When I was telling her how to pose, it looked very posed. It didn't really look natural. So I just said, do whatever, pretend you're just drawing. So she did, and I think it looks pretty marvelous. So I tried to do a very realistic looking sketch to start out with, because I wanted to make sure that I was ahead of the game and giving myself as much information as possible. Then I went on to just figure out my composition. Now, like I said, I wanted to move the viewer's eye through the painting, which you're going to see a good shot of it at the end to see it all together. And I picked up this sketchbook as well and started drawing out the ship in a little bit more detail. It's mostly from my head, which is hard because I'm not an expert with ships or anything, so I tried to, get a lot of research in there. And here's me working out the composition. I like to do things in a really small way first to start out, because if it looks, terrible small, it's also going to look terrible big. So I thought I would try out a few things. I liked the idea of doing a border around it. I've been doing that in a lot of my paintings, and I think it's really interesting to draw people in, frames it again, and then I can work a little bit with 3D kind of stuff and make it look like it's popping out of that frame. And I started out doing some color studies as well, so I ended up really liking the way that this was looking. It's a little busy and crazy, but I knew that once it was bigger, it would be a little bit easier to tell what's going on. So I liked the idea of doing like a starry kind of sky, but then having it like turn into a sunset pretty much. And then I also had this idea where I wanted it to be her wall. So the sky would be her wall in her bedroom, and then I did a bunch of little like glow-in-the-dark stars too, to make it kind of, just play with that idea of reality and imagination. So glow-in-the-dark stars and then real stars at the top. Toyed around with a few ideas of doing like a bed and cushions and pillows and stuff, and I ended up going with a pretty simple approach. And here is a drawing of the figurehead. Now, again, I toyed around with a few different ideas. I thought about doing like maybe a horse or something, like a seahorse, or just like a person, like a figurehead of a pirate. But I ended up choosing a lion because it was like a little more powerful, a bit more fun to draw even, and I just thought it would work really well for a girl's imagination. It's like, a lion, that's pretty powerful. Now, when I'm partway through a painting, I like to have a to-do list. If I'm getting a little bit stuck, I'll just set the painting up, stand really far back from it, and start writing out a to-do list. So certain things that I wanted to change, things that I thought could improve or add, things that I could add. Like some of these things are, let's see. Alright, I wanted to fix the smoothness on the stars. So those glow-in-the-dark stars, they were looking a little bit, the paint quality was not smooth like a real glow-in-the-dark star, so that's one of them. Do skulls on the flags. I wanted to bring the octopus onto the paper more, so bring those tentacles up a little higher into the paper, make it look like it's actually connected. And here's I don't think you can see it very well in there, sorry about that, but here are some drawings of the pages. Now, there's a story behind those pages. I work with kids, and so I wanted to have kids' drawings on those papers to make it look like the girl in the painting has drawn them, she's really excited, and they're just kind of like flying all over her room because she's just in that zone, in that, excited, creative zone. So I asked these kids the kids at my work, to do a bunch of pirate drawings, and I didn't give them any more instruction. I just said, here's the paper, here's a pen or pencil, and I just want you to draw something that has anything to do with pirates. So they ended up doing really interesting things. One of the boys did a shark that was like eating an anchor on a ship, so it was like pulling the ship down and eating people in an anchor, and it was really interesting, and then kind of gruesome, but pretty funny. And one of them just did an octopus, and she spent so long on it. I really wanted to honor her with that, so I added that to the bottom left corner in kind of that's the biggest page. And then one girl did a sea creature. She was only at the program for a tiny bit of time that day, but she managed to do this really interesting like sea creature that was going in the water and out of the water, and had some like treasure at the bottom of the drawing. So I thought that was a really neat touch to add some actual kids' drawings to this painting, which just showed a little bit more of that playfulness and that child mind, So I ended up like copying them exactly as much as I could. I would have the picture or the drawing right beside me, and then I would just like copy it line for line with a pencil, and then ended up just doing a clear coat over top of it to seal it. So it is pencil on there, it's not painted, just to make it, why would I try painting a pencil line when I could just draw a pencil on it? Made it easier. Alright, now I wanted a lot of pirate figures in there as well to just draw you into the painting, make it look a little bit more interesting. So I had a captain, and like I said, that's one of the sisters, and I had her upper half here in a photo because she just like stood kind of in the doorway of one of the vehicles that they owned, and I was like, just pretend to be like a pirate, and so she started like pointing and yelling, and it was really great. She was such a good actress. So I took those photos, I changed her outfit to be more of a piratey captain outfit, did a bit more research, and added like, her bottom half as well. And here's some more figures. Now some of them I didn't like so much, like this big one here. I just tried so hard to make it work, and you can see a lot of eraser lines. I was using an erasable pen because I wanted to have those dark lines, but I wanted to be able to manipulate it a bit. So after a certain point, the pen doesn't erase anymore. So I tried that. It was my sister who posed for that one, but I never really liked the way that it looked. I think some of my proportions were off. But some of these turned out pretty nicely. Some of these people were on the boat that I was on, the ship, with the salts program. Halfway through this painting, I was becoming a little bit worried because I had a bunch of pictures from my sailing ship. I saw pictures online and stuff of ships, but I still had a few questions, like how does this thing attach to this thing, or how many cords are here, or how does the sail look when it's like down like this, and what if the light was going through it, and those kind of questions. So I actually visited my parents and my grandparents for Christmas in California, and there happened to be a tall ship there that my grandma researched. She's like, oh, this ship is here, and they have it sail around the bay a few times a day for this week or whatever. So I was like, oh, that's perfect, and they took me there, and were able to do a little tour of the ship. So we kind of, it was not very long, it was like an hour or something, and then we just sat and watched the ship as they prepared it to sail. So this was perfect because I could answer all those questions that I had of how did they let the sails down, and what happens when the ship turns a certain way and the wind hits it in this way, and it was excellent to be able to get that extra research in, and to have it like physical as well, to be able to actually be there and see it. And I know that it would have been different in the era that I am trying to paint. It's kind of more like 1800s or whatever, or 1700s in the age of sail. And I didn't really care too much, At a certain point, I was just like, okay, that's good enough. I don't know if it's accurate, but I'm going to make it as accurate as I can at this point and move on. So there you go. Thank you, Grandma. Okay, and this is funny too. I was posing for my own figures in my painting, and so one afternoon I just go upstairs and have this camera on my tripod and start like pretending that I'm sailing through the air in like holding onto a rope. And this was really tricky to do. I also wanted to see what it would look like if the sail wasn't on top, like over top of the person. So I took some photos with me like in the window with the curtain in front, and I just really hoped that no neighbors walked by at that moment, because I would have looked like a super crazy person, which I guess an artist sometimes has to be a little bit crazy. Now, in order to make a painting that looks really like 3D and stuff, I use something called washes, and I just like basically go over the same thing like over and over and over again and create layers and layers and layers. So this helps for like skin tone and making those like slight variations from the cheek to the side of the face and the area in like on the nose and stuff, and getting those highlights in there and those rich tones. And acrylic is perfect for this because it dries so fast, so you can do a ton of layers just using like a blow dryer in between, and just keep working at it. And you can make, like, you can get really, really vibrant colors, which I know you can with other mediums as well, but I just find acrylics are the easiest with that. And for this kind of a painting, that's what I wanted. I wanted it to look almost digital, like kind of three-dimensional, digital, and just like a kid's imagination, like super colorful and vibrant and fun. So making those like colorful layers, I think, really added to that. And for these pages flying around her room, I couldn't quite picture what that would look like in real life if that was happening, because, you know, as simple as something like a piece of paper flying around is, if you try to sit down and draw it, it doesn't always look the way you want it to. So I wanted to have some real reference to look at, and so I again went upstairs into my kitchen area, had a fan on the ground or on a chair or something, and had a page like, well, I first started like just throwing them and taking a bunch of pictures, and that was just too crazy. It didn't really work very well. And then I think I tried a few other things, and the thing that ended up working the best was to attach a string to the page and have that attached somewhere on the ceiling, and then just have it over the top of the fan. And so it was just like slowly being blown around, and so I took tons and tons of pictures, probably like 200 pictures, and ended up with like 5 that I really liked, and used those as my reference. So sometimes you got to get a little bit creative, a little bit crazy, and just do whatever works, right? And for that octopus, I got to go to, it was that same place that had the ship actually, and there was just like a little walk-through area with a bunch of sea creatures in glass tanks, and so I got to see an octopus in the middle of my painting when I knew that I would need to draw an octopus, and that was really helpful, I think, to get those realistic references, and to be able to see them in real life too is helpful. So like, do that whenever you can, you know. Being an artist is a lot about observation, just looking at the world around you, seeing how things work, how light works when it hits something, or what color it makes, or how many like shadows there are for these certain things, how many light sources, and it's just, you know, it's just paying attention to those things. And it can be distracting if you're always doing that. You're like talking to a friend, and all you're noticing is the way that their mouth moves when they speak. And then you're like, okay, wait, you told me a whole story and I didn't hear anything that you just said. I'm so sorry. So it can definitely be distracting. You have to learn how to turn it on, how to turn it off. But I think for an artist, it's important that you pay attention to what's around you. So up to that point, this was the most ambitious project that I had ever tried. It was big. It was intense. I had to do a ton of research, and I had to use my head, use my imagination, use my brain, and it was so challenging. Took probably 900 hours from start to finish, and I just found that at the end I was so satisfied. There are some things that I would go back and change if I was doing it now, but overall, because I spent so much time on the composition, on the idea even, and the subject, and the story, like, I wanted to show almost a story in action, and I've told people have told me that it looks almost like a cover of a story or something, and so I wanted to just show almost a whole story just in one painting if I could. And I got like those kids at my work to do the drawings, and I ended up selling it to a family in the family actually that's the daughters are in. I sold it to them in Nova Scotia. So that was a pretty big chore to get it shipped out there, but you know, I'm just so happy with it. And I think that when you're doing an art project, if it's for the purpose of creating your best work, then put in those hours and put in that time. And even if it's a ridiculous amount of time, like 900 hours, I think it's worth it in the end. And even if you don't get paid as much as you should have, or you're a little disappointed with people's reactions or whatever, I think that if you do your best and work many hours and just try your hardest and use everything that you've been taught over the years, I think that you just personally, as an artist, will be rewarded for it. And I would just encourage you to try something that's maybe outside of your comfort zone or a little bit more ambitious, and, you know, take some inspiration from the world around you. Try to figure out what's important to you and what's interesting, and something that you'll just really be able to spend that time on and enjoy. I think you'll be rewarded, and I hope that this painting and showing the work that I've done, I hope that this inspires you to get out there and just try something that's fun, ambitious, takes a long time, and is super rewarding in the end. Well, thank you so much for watching. I hope you liked it, and please subscribe if you did, and I will be getting another video out next month. I'm going to show you what I've been doing in this quarantine. Have a good month.